Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Around the Nest. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts, coming to you currently from Beloit, Wisconsin and Pullman Field. On this week's edition of the show, we'll speak with the Buffalo Bisons' Ben Wagner. We'll also speak with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats' Bob Lipman, as well as Trey Wilson of the Lansing Lugnuts, and we'll hear from Dwight Smith Jr. of the Dunedin Blue Jays. So a lot going on this week's edition as we take you all around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. We're going to begin this week with Ben Wagner, talking about the AAA Buffalo Bisons. Ben, there have been some days when weather has interfered a little bit with your plans, so you've gotten in 2 games for the price of 1, and those doubleheaders seem to be piling up on your schedule.
Piling up and then adding to it, because as the Bisons, twice in the 3 doubleheaders that they've already played, have gone to extended innings in 2 out of the 3. So you're not only getting a little bit more bang for your buck on a single admission, but the Buffalo Bisons bullpen is getting taxed early in the season. So that, of course, is never in the plans. You know you're going to have to fight Mother Nature early on in the year. That just comes with the territory, especially in the Northeast, like we all have to kind of navigate through. But not the extra innings, and it's not indicative of the bullpen or at least surrendering the run. It's the fact that the offense hasn't been able to get clicking on some of these long days.
What has been happening? What do you mean specifically?
Well, for example, Buffalo, limited to 3 hits just the other day, and in that loss against the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders. And now there has been some instances where the guy on the other end of that has done his job. But Gary Allenson was asked specifically about kind of the offensive blows yesterday, and he partially blamed the success of the other pitcher and the game plan going into that, whether it's keeping guys off balance or just having that good stuff working, or the fact that there was just not an answer, and it was one of those days where Buffalo just couldn't string together some of the rallies that they've had early in the season that have led what was a 7-3 start, and Buffalo grabbed the opener against the Rail Riders, and you go from thinking really on paper that you should have a chance to take all 3 games in this series to hoping you can salvage just a game in the doubleheader split. And Buffalo went extra innings in the opening game yesterday and just could never get that knockout blow. They had a chance late in the 8th and then also in the 9th to try to build that rally and just could not get the tying run and eventual what would have been a game-winning run across late in that contest as well. Just couldn't get it across the plate.
Let me ask you, in the Midwest League at the Class low single-A level, April is seen as a time for all these guys to get their feet underneath of them. They still need experience. This is a level that's going to challenge them. And so it's as the season goes on, then you see how they adapt, then you see how they grow. How is April seen in AAA?
That's interesting because you can get a couple of different variables factoring into it. Guys that are part of the non-roster invitee list, also guys that are a part of maybe the 40-man that are fighting for a job coming through spring training. So you've got 6 weeks of guys that have really tried and worked really hard mentally, physically, trying to make the major league roster. Some guys kind of think of April not necessarily on purpose, but April becomes a mental taxation on them because they work so hard for 6 weeks and they're dealing kind of with the jarring effects of not making an opening day roster and dealing with the bad news of coming back down to the minor league side of things and knowing that they're going to start the year in AAA. It's very deflating. Other guys try to get that rhythm early at the plate, or if it's a pitching standpoint too, you're working on building up your pitch count, depending on what role you had. If you were in Major League camp, maybe you were planning to be a starter in the minor leagues, but you were used only as a reliever in some of the big league ball games, so then you're limited to your pitch count. So it's a lot of different variables at the AAA level where no role is defined. Chad Jenkins is a classic example like that. Prepping to be a long man, started a couple of minor league games on the backfield, and then all of a sudden he ends up in the Buffalo bullpen because of the depth both at the big leagues and in Buffalo. And now his last 3 outings have just been 1-inning stints. That's a far cry from being a long man in any role, let alone being a starter.
We're speaking with Ben Wagner, the voice of the Buffalo Bisons. Speaking about those guys who maybe didn't make the major league roster out of spring training, there's been movement. There's been movement already, and how has that felt when you get to see who gets called up and who gets sent down?
Well, the movement that we've seen is partly indicative of injury situations, and that will change too, and the guys will shuttle back when they have to activate Jose Reyes for the major league roster when the club opens in Cleveland this weekend. Anthony Ghost is just back in the Bisons clubhouse as we sit here at McCoy Stadium in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I just saw him, and he talked about the cold condition and that long, awful eighth inning that he had to endure playing center field as well. So, you get the big leagues life, some of that big league life in the chatter, but also, you deal with the devastation that guys want to be in the major leagues. So depending on which way the shuttle is running this time of year, there's a lot of excitement. Sometimes there is some awkward conversation because you have to ask if a guy had significant time and underperformed, why he was sent back. But in a lot of the cases, guys are just happy to be a part of the plan with the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's kind of the fun stuff to talk about. And then, of course, at AAA, you're also dealing with some guys that have to get taken off the 40-man roster, like we had with Marcus Walden earlier in the week, where he had every intention of coming back to Buffalo. He was getting ready and just preparing as a normal game day, and then his agent calls him and says, you're now part of the Oakland Athletics organization. You're going to get your itinerary from somebody that's going to call you in 15 minutes, and you're going to start the rest of the year in Sacramento. So now he's making plans to go back to Sacramento, where his mom and dad live, to see if they can check up with them while he gets his feet planted after just 3 weeks ago, finding a house and an apartment and trying to get his friends and family up and back to Buffalo so he can be part of 2014 season. Now, all, of course, that can change with one phone call.
Ben, was that one of the more abrupt changes of fortunes and changes of directions you've heard for a ball player?
No, Chris Schwinden definitely qualifies there. That is the most chaotic 6-week window I've ever seen of a player. But from Marcus Walden's standpoint, that's pretty much the norm. If you've got a guy that an organization or two may be looking at where it's down to the wire on waivers, and the big league club, will make a decision whether they'll want to be part of the 40-man roster or not, and the phone rings, and then that's pretty much it. And then, of course, you have the wait-and-see mentality, too, like Jeremy Jeffress, who, by all reports, will elect free agency. And after he was designated and outrighted by the Blue Jays, Buffalo would love to have him as part of the bullpen. We saw his success at the AAA level last year, but he's got to look at it from his perspective, weigh all the pros and cons, whether being part of the Blue Jays or being part of another organization would fit him better, and he elects for the free agency.
This is Ben Wagner, the voice of the Buffalo Bisons on Around the Nest, and we partnered up this year with Bluebird Banter, part of SB Nation. A question for you, and simply, how is Marcus Stroman looking right now? I think we saw on paper the most recent box score. How did he look to you watching him go right on through the lineup?
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, he's been a huge joy to watch, a great joy to talk to, and just a pleasure to be around in the clubhouse. So do not let the box score stats or lines or whatever you look at deceive you. He has been every bit of good as winning his first AAA ball game. He did have to take that loss in Lehigh Valley, 1-0, a pass ball that scooted away from the pitcher as he threw, or catcher as he threw up and in. So, it hasn't been all roses from that perspective, but everything that we've seen for the pitcher in his makeup, and now just trying to figure it out. And he realizes, and we talked to him during the broadcast from the dugout yesterday as well, and he said kind of what we witnessed, he still needs to work down to the zone. He's got to find that right release point and make sure he's as crisp as can be, because a couple of mistakes will come back and hurt you. But he was as dominant of any of the two previous starts earlier this week when he struck out 9. That's a new AAA high, and was just once again one away from ratcheting another double-digit strikeout total in the upper levels of the minors. So that's an easy question. You guys can ask me that anytime you want.
And a promising outing, too, for Ricky Romero. How's Ricky looking?
Well, Ricky threw one of his better starts I've ever seen him throw with the Bisons his last time out. 6 innings, allowed just 1 run. He was very strong. That was vintage Ricky. And when he needed a ground ball, of course, the vintage changeup emerges out of his hands, and he induced a couple of ground balls to get out of big jams. Bison's defensively backing him up as well. That was a very good start for Ricky, and definitely something that he can build on.
All right, and finally, our question of the week this week. Now, the Lansing Lugnuts have attracted some attention by bringing in a camel for hump days this year every Wednesday. What are some of the more unusual things or some of the more unusual theme nights that have stuck in your memory from past seasons?
Ooh, this is a good one, because we have a number of ballparks that try to do new things promotion-wise out on the field. I am a big fan of course the name escapes me, but I want to call them the Ghost Riders. But it's the fact that the monkey rides on the back of the sheepdog, and they herd the sheep in the outfield, and they come in and they run around. It's a whole traveling act, and if it's in a ballpark near you, I always enjoy that one. Only
Ghost
because
Riders.
What is it?
Team Ghost Riders. I just googled them.
Yes, Team Ghost Riders. And so yes, you've got the lambs, and of course you've got them roaming around aimlessly at the end of the ball game. They've got this whole thing where then at the end, one of them is trained. They hop in the back of the truck and they go right to the top of it and they stand on the hood and everybody cheers, and it's a great thing for the fans. I do enjoy that only because I do appreciate the animal training aspect of it. But any theme night in a ballpark can go from good to worse, depending if it involves costumes. So when you have the Star Wars night, like we have at Coca-Cola Field, and it's sold out last year, 18,000 people waving their lightsabers once the lights go out. That's a really cool scene. Plus then everybody's dressed up in their get-ups. What else have we seen? Zombie night. That's a little scary for a number of different reasons. Use your own imagination. So those are a couple of highlights that we always look forward to.
He's Ben Wagner, the voice of the Buffalo Bisons, and the Bisons are on the road currently, but they'll be back home April 26th, beginning a homestand in upstate New York against Louisville. All you have to do, go online, go to bisons.com, and find Ben Wagner at BenWag247. Ben, thank you very much for joining us yet again. We'll see you next week.
We'll talk next week, Jesse. Thanks.
Let's go right down the ladder now to Double-A, joined by Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Bob, how are things going in Double-A?
Yeah, I was just showing Tim Hyman here in Binghamton the Ghost Riders. We had the monkeys riding the dogs at our Eastern League All-Star game in New Hampshire a couple years ago. That's a great minor league promotion.
Well, we can even start this with you. That was our last question that we concluded with Ben Wagner.
No, you can hold on to that. We're sitting at 4-8 right now, Jesse. So there hasn't been a whole lot of positive to talk about for Double-A New Hampshire, but we're hoping that the return to the mound tonight of the top prospect Aaron Sanchez will get the Fisher Cats back on the right track and get Aaron Sanchez back on the right track. He's coming off of a pretty difficult outing against Binghamton, the same club he faces here in New York State tonight.
Well, in fact, from Tom Dakers of SB Nation's Bluebird Banter, how is Aaron Sanchez looking so far this year entering tonight?
Yeah, he started terrific. The first game against the Trenton Thunder looked fantastic, followed it up with a pretty good start against Reading. Unfortunately, the first start that he makes at our ballpark came against Binghamton last Sunday, and it didn't go well for Aaron. He didn't have the command, gave up 4 hits, 4 walks, 3 hit batsmen, and was out of the game early. So I think everyone knows what kind of a talent Aaron Sanchez is, and he's going to be a major league pitcher one day. We'll see what he does tonight.
Another question for you, just with all the weather, it's affected Buffalo, it's affected Lansing. How has the cold weather affected New Hampshire, and how has it affected the play on the field?
Well, I guess you don't want to use it as a crutch, and I say that because everybody in our league is going through the same thing. The Fisher Cats had a pretty tough effort last night and lost to Binghamton with no game on Tuesday and no game Wednesday. You figured they'd be a little rusty, but the same held for Binghamton. They lost 2 games in Maine this week, and it's just the nature of things early on. You have to make sure that those days off, you're still getting in the hitting cage and doing everything you can. And Fisher Cats took an extra long infield today before batting practice, so you can't make excuses. You have to go out and play the game, but there's no question it's tough to find a rhythm, and I think it hits your bullpen where the guys are certainly not pitching where they would normally do, and it's definitely going to have to play on the defense, and unfortunately we saw that last night. I got you. Hello?
Bob, I'm back. We've seen with the Lansing Lugnuts and with the Buffalo Bisons what April means in AAA and Single A. It's a very different thing. How about at the AA level? What does April mean for the AA Fisher Cats and for the Eastern League?
You know, let's start with, I guess, the guys who are up here for the first time. Guys like John Birdie, Jonathan Jones, really, Michael Krause. Guys who are just making it to AA. I think you want to give them a pretty good sample, 100 at-bats, maybe a full month of play before you start to make some kind of decisions. For some of the veteran guys, I think that they want to see the guys come out and perform right away. And clearly, for guys like Ryan Schimpf and Brad Glenn, who have been with the Fisher Cats for a little while, you're seeing early on that they've been able to work through the beautiful weather in Florida to the cold weather in the Northeast and take advantage, and they're both playing very well early on. So let's remember, very small sample size when you've only played a couple of weeks, and no decisions are going to be made about players and their futures at this point. But for the veteran guys, they want to start strong.
Well, it has been a terrific, strong start for Ryan Schimpf, and it's been good to see. And so you have to figure sometime this year Schimpf is going to get that call up to AAA. What has been the adjustment for him from last year to this year?
Yeah, I think it started last year. That's a good question, Jesse, because he showed a lot of patience at the plate, set a Fisher Cat record for most walks, was very selective, and has continued with that approach. And we both know how hard he works to keep up that strength and can knock the ball out. I think the biggest question is going to be, where are you going to play him? And he'll be in our lineup tonight at second base. He's been a third baseman. He's taken the reps in the outfield and has proven that he can play there. So what he wants to do is put himself in the best position he possibly can be for the Blue Jays when they start thinking about Ryan Schimpf. They don't have him pigeonholed as just a third baseman. He's proving that he can handle the defense no matter where they put him.
Meanwhile, with Deck McGuire, a lot of eyes remain on him and how Deck is. Every now and then we see an appearance from him, and it seems like, all right, there's the breakthrough. And his last start, again, very strong. So how is Deck looking?
Yeah, I think the Deck's ready to move on. As soon as the Blue Jays figure out, where they want to go, he has solved AA, and that came the end of last summer and start after start. He wasn't leaving the ball up. He was getting the sink, and for the most part this year, he's been terrific. And you mentioned he's coming off of our win over New Britain on Monday, 2 earned runs in 6 innings. And when he does get beat, it seems like it's a solo home run to lead off the inning or something like that. So I think Deck's ready to move on. He's had plenty of time here at the AA level, and Blue Jays will give him an opportunity here to show what he can do. Obviously, being on the 40-man roster, now he does figure in their future plans.
With Bob Lipman, with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats in the Blue Jays system, this is Around the Nest, as we're talking all about the Blue Jays affiliates. Question of the week, Bob, is with regard to Lansing bringing in a camel this year, Humphrey, for Hump Days, what is the most peculiar or odd or unusual things you've seen at a baseball park, or maybe some theme days that stand out in your mind?
Yeah, last night was Gilligan's Island night here in Binghamton, and if the 3-hour tour was accomplished last night, everybody in the ballpark would have received a free ticket to a future game. Unfortunately, the Fisher Cats didn't cooperate, and we were out of here in 2 hours and 25 minutes, so that promotion kind of fizzled away. I think I look at we had that first year, you guys may remember Stump Merrill, who long time in the Yankees organization, and Trenton did a Stump Merrill bobble belly where you kind of patted his head and his belly kind of got bigger, and he had a big one to begin with. I always look for those little bit of offbeat bobbleheads. We used to play the Norwich Navigators, the team that moved to Richmond in our league, and the broadcaster there, Sean Holliday, and I had a Lizzie Borden bobblehead that we would pass back and forth. If you won the series, then the other broadcaster had to hold on to to the Lizzie Borden bobblehead, and she had an axe in her hand. So that was kind of creepy. I wonder if a baseball team actually gave that away.
That is wild. Back to the Gilligan's Island night. Is that the first time you've ever heard, first time for me, that fans would be rooting on a longer game and would be booing quick half innings?
Yeah, and it was cool. And it should have been less than 3 hours, right? That would have been the way to set it up.
Yes. I mean, Gilligan's Island, they hoped it would only be a 3-hour tour, and it turned out taking them years in a movie.
Yes. I think they're still there, right?
My gosh. Well, thank you very much, Bob Lipman, the voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, and we wish you well. For all the information about your Fisher Cats, just go to nhfishercats.com, and it's at nhfishercats on Twitter. Bob, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good luck. Lots of wins.
All right. Well, let's bring in now Trey Wilson, the voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, with me, calling Lugnuts games during this 2014 season, going from AAA Buffalo to AA New Hampshire, and now to the Single-A level in the Midwest League. Trey and I are in Beloit. Now, Trey, the Lugnuts have lost 7 consecutive games. This is true. The record is 3-10. But a quick question right away from Bluebird Nation, or Bluebird Banter from SB Nation. What are the positives that you're seeing?
Well, I think we're starting to see some guys that are heating up, and the big prospect names that everybody wants to hear about, they're starting to warm up. DJ Davis, Matt Dean, and Mitch May, all 3 of them are hitting the ball extremely well right now. And there have been some pitchers that have thrown well, and once the rest of the pitching staff joins in on that task, I think that this is going to be quite a good ball club. The good news is, in a league like this, if you're looking for a league championship with a team as stacked as this team is in prospects, you get to hit reset halfway through the year. So even if they keep skidding like this a little while through the first half, I don't think if this team stays intact the way that it is, that it's going to be a team that's going to play this way all the way through the year. I think this could be a strong second half team, but there's still plenty of time left here in the first half.
With the Buffalo Bisons, Marcus Stroman is the number 1 guy. That's the headline grabber. That's who everybody's watching. With the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, it's Aaron Sanchez. Now, with the Lansing Lugnuts, I'd argue that it's DJ Davis, and there's DJ popping up on SportsCenter this week.
That's right. DJ made a heck of a catch when we were up in Appleton at Wisconsin Timber Rattlers Park a couple of days ago. You know, we spent all those days there and only got to play the 2 games. Thankfully, we got those 2 games in. The doubleheader the last day that we were there. DJ made it count defensively, made a beautiful diving catch, taking away extra bases and probably taking away at least 2 runs, running into the gap. If you didn't see it on SportsCenter last night, everybody listening, you go check it out on LansingLugnuts.com. It's quite a play. And while you're there, anybody who goes to check that out, make sure you go check out the catch that Chase DeYoung made in that same, I don't remember if it was the same game, but it was during that same doubleheader. He had a nice diving catch to take away a popped-up bunt. And it was not a play that you would normally see out of a pitcher. He got fully extended and showed some nice defensive skills.
It's good that you mentioned Chase DeYoung because perhaps lost in the losses, Chase DeYoung 4 shutout innings in the doubleheader against Wisconsin, and Alberto Tirado 3 shutout innings and 6 strikeouts. So what was working for both of those guys?
Well, Chase DeYoung still wasn't showing quite the master of being the master of the strike zone that he has been throughout other parts of his career. He was up, he struggled a little bit, but to keep guys off base and to keep guys from scoring, that's what you want to see. So he was better than he had been in previous outings. He kept the ball a little bit more down. It got away from him a little bit. I don't know if the fact that it was like negative 60 degrees outside made him a little bit more stiff and stand up straight. Tirado kind of had the same problem. He left the ball up, which is unusual for him, but he battled and he kept guys from getting around to score, which is what we've seen Alberto Tirado do since he started pitching in the Blue Jays organization. They showed that they could pitch through diversity. Not diversity, pitch through adversity. Maybe some diversity too, and keep guys off the plate.
This is Trey Wilson joining me with the Lansing Lugnuts broadcasts this season. The Lugnuts, the Single-A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. The question of the weather has arisen, and once again, there was the weather interfering this week, Trey. On Monday, snow fell upon Appleton, Wisconsin. No game. It was also canceled on Tuesday, forced a doubleheader on Wednesday. How have you seen snow affect the baseball, actually, that's been played?
Well, missing 2 days was certainly interesting. I think the guys got a little bit antsy sitting around. And, really, the first game of that set, both teams came out really flinging the bat. So I think maybe it might have had more of an effect on the pitchers than on the hitters, the weight did. But it was cold. Fastball velocities were way down. We barely saw any pitches that hit 90 miles an hour in the course of those 2 games up in Appleton. It was just cold. The guys were stiff. We saw some balls that got up the middle that might not have gotten through on normal days because the shortstop, the other team, especially for the Timber Rattlers, really struggling to move towards the hole. It was just hard to get moving. Everybody's getting stiff, getting out there, the wind whipping across the field at 20 miles an hour all game. It was not ideal. That was not an ideal condition to play baseball in.
Well, on the bright side for the Lugnuts, someone who has not been bothered by the weather, scheduled to start tonight, right-hander Kendall Graveman, the draftee out of Mississippi State University, and he's been setting the pace. Why? What has made him so effective?
Ground balls, lots and lots of ground balls, good economy of pitches. His last start, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know that he went deep into the game. He went 7 innings, which was a new career high, and he had 7 strikeouts, which was also a career high. And he did it on, I believe, it was 80 pitches for those 7 innings. I don't know if you remember the exact number, Jesse. I have it written down somewhere in my scorebook. But I think it was 80 pitches for 7 innings, and he just threw a lot of strikes, got ground balls, and then when he was going after guys for strikeouts, he made it count. He didn't have guys fouling off a bunch of pitches. He went right after them, made them swing and miss.
And finally, something that we love to have, something we love to talk about all season long, before we get to our question of the podcast, those players who maybe they haven't received attention, especially in the off-season when everybody's all aflutter over top prospects, and then the season starts and you really see how effective they are in helping their team out. Who are some of those lesser-known players who've played well so far this year for the Lugnuts?
Well, I think Derek Lovelace has done a good job at the plate. He's starting to heat up more the last few games as well. He's making better contact. He has such a good swing. Everybody likes his swing. He's been hitting down the bottom of the order. He's been pretty much an everyday player for Lansing. And we saw last night he swung the bat well. He drove in a run, which the runs have been hard to come by in most games for this Lansing team. I think Derek Lovelace has been a pleasant surprise. He started out a little bit cold, and he goes through some stretches where he doesn't have a good idea of where the strike zone is. But he's made vast improvements since last year.
And now here's our question of the week with the Lugnuts introducing Hump Day with Humphrey the Camel. Trey, in your seasons covering baseball and the stadiums you've been to, any unusual sights that stand out or unusual theme nights that you're not going to soon forget?
Well, I think it was cool to back up in Appleton. We saw the Brat Zuka. They have a big sign outside the stadium, and you and I talked about it on the air. A lot of the players didn't know what a brat was. They thought it was a Brat Zuka, a gun for firing small children that were unruly, I guess. But that one was pretty interesting. There are weird little promotions all over the place. I think mascot bobbleheads are always weird. Last year, one of the cool things that I liked that they did in Bluefield that we put together down there was a celebration of Appalachian culture. It's not as strange, but maybe to some people. We did some things to celebrate Appalachian culture because it was big down there in that southern West Virginia area down in Bluefield. We had a kid that would wear the mascot suit for some games who also played the banjo. So we had a musical chairs banjo event with the mascot, the Baby J mascot playing the banjo. That was something that was a little bit different. I don't think that there are many banjo playing mascots out there.
Well, in the Appy League, definitely. In other leagues, probably not so much. Trey, thank you very much for your time. Until next week.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, and now we are not joined by Trey Wilson with the Dunedin Blue Jays, at least not live. And the problem with that is, well, Dunedin, they've been weather affected as well. Dunedin has had all sorts of doubleheaders scheduled because of different rain down in the Florida State League. They are underway currently. Trey Wilson is on the air. Simply go to the Dunedin Blue Jays website. The Blue Jays are scoreless currently with the Brevard County Manatees. They're in the top of the second inning. So with Tyler Murray with Dunedin, because we couldn't check in with the DJs, here's what we're going to do. We actually have an interview. First, Let's hear about an Emilio Guerrero home run that occurred the other day in the FSL, Emilio's second home run of the year.
Now a chance for Emilio Guerrero to get aboard as well. He, like Newman, enters the game with a 5-game hitting streak. Blue Jays third baseman tonight. Swings and hits one high in the air to deep left field. Back goes Rodemaker at the track, at the wall. This one's gone. A go-ahead 2-run blast for Emilio Guerrero. His second homer of the year. He'll pick up RBIs number 3 and 4, and the Jays are on top 2-1.
So that's Emilio Guerrero. That's his second home run this season. That has helped Dunedin build up an 11-2 record to this point, and one of the keys to helping their success has been Dwight Smith Jr., who was the Lansing Lugnuts R. Howard Webster Award winner last season. He was the Lugnuts 2013 team MVP, and he's performing even better this year for the DJs. Al Hernandez caught up with him earlier this week.
I'm Al Hernandez here with Dwight Smith Jr., left fielder for the Blue Jays. Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
Started off to an extremely hot start on the season. Everybody saw it. No one could ignore it. It's impossible to keep up that pace. You cool down a little bit, but you're still batting quite well. What's the adjustments you have to make once you cool off from that extremely hot start?
I just got to stay within myself and keep working hard every day, and the results will come. Just got to keep playing day by day, take it one day at a time.
During that tear at the beginning, you hit 2 home runs off of Cole Hamels. I'm sure lots of people have asked you questions about it, but just take us through those 2 at-bats in that whole day.
I knew Cole had some good off-speed, some good secondary pitches, so I wanted to jump on that fastball early, and he left some pitches over the plate that I had a good opportunity to put a good swing on, and both of them went over the fence, so it was a good feeling that day.
Tyler and I always praise Stubby Clapp and his ability to make adjustments with his hitters. Has he done anything particularly well with you to help you on the field?
Yeah. We've been tracking the ball a little bit better, so I can keep my eyes from getting too jumpy sometimes, and just staying relaxed. Help me relax a little bit more at the plate. And Stubby's great. Just for the main part, just lets everybody do their thing, and if he sees something, he'll give you a suggestion and try it out and see if it works in the game.
Before the season, Omar told us that he likes to stay aggressive on the base paths, and it's obvious based on the base running of all the players on the team so far, you guys have taken to the aggressiveness. You being one of the faster guys on the team, what's been your key to success on the base paths so far?
Just always been, once I get on base, I'm a base runner. I take pride in that, and because most of the time, most of the pitches they're locked on to the fast guys. They start picking over, so I'm trying to get the guys behind me to get some good fastballs to hit, and if I get a stolen base, I get a stolen base, but more importantly, just get that run scored any way possible.
You play the outfield, particularly left field this season, and a lot of people might just look at outfielders and say, oh, well, he's fast, so he must be good at the outfield. But what outside of speed do you need to be a strong defender out there?
You got to have knowledge of like every hitter you're facing, know what his tendencies are, where he likes to hit the ball, and basically knowing your pitching staff too, so you kind of get good jumps on the ball, and keeping everything in front of you, when to dive, when not to, and making good throws, hitting your cutoff, man.
The pitching staff has been fantastic to start the season. Is there any extra added pressure when you're out there in the field to try to make a good play for them?
Oh, no. We always got their back if they leave a pitch over the plate or anything like that, but they've been pitching pretty good. Like, most of the time, I've been going some games without any balls, so they've been doing an awesome job this year so far.
Faced the Manatees last week, facing them again already. Does that give you an advantage, do you feel, facing pitchers already once?
Yeah. Once you've seen the same guy a few times, you get to know him a little bit better, and they get to know you a little bit better. So it gets better. It gets easier, a lot easier. You know what he throws. You know what all the other hitters do, and all that other stuff, and basically just go from there.
In case anyone doesn't know, Dwight Smith Jr. is the son of Dwight Smith, if they couldn't figure that out themselves. What was it like growing up with a father playing in the major leagues?
It was awesome. I always followed him around in the clubhouse, and ever since 4 years old, I wanted to play baseball. So it's basically been my childhood dream, and I'm thankful for Toronto Blue Jays giving me the opportunity to live it out.
Is he one of those ex-player fathers that likes to be really involved and talking to you and giving you advice, or does he like to stay back and just let the coaching staff handle that?
Like I talk to him over the phone like every day, but for the most part he just stays back and he watches from afar, and if he sees a little thing he'll tell me, but for the most part he just lets me do my thing.
You started the season with your socks up, then a couple games in decided to put them down. Do you think we'll be seeing those socks up anytime soon?
I like to switch it up here and there. I was switching up, like pants up, pants down, seeing how the pants fit, which look was more comfortable for me. So we'll see.
I like fast guys with their socks up.
Well, sometimes I gotta put the pants down so the other team won't think I'm as fast. So I sneak a little base here and there.
Dwight Smith Jr.'s trickery, everyone. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
That was Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays speaking with Dwight Smith Jr., knowing exactly when to let the other team know when he's fast and when not to. Well, this concludes another week of Around the Nest, Jay talking our way through the Toronto Blue Jays organization. My thanks to Trey Wilson with the Lansing Lugnuts, Al Hernandez and Tyler Murray with the Dunedin Blue Jays, Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, and Ben Wagner with the AAA Buffalo Bisons. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. You can find all the latest information about the show via aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. It's a nice, easy website to remember, aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. We'll be on the air starting at 5 o'clock Eastern every Friday, and you can find the podcasts via iTunes and elsewhere. And our thanks finally go to SB Nation's Bluebird Banter, Tom Dakers, this week. This does it for another week. Till next week, and enjoy the baseball.